Story 1. The Lake Cabin. It was the summer of 2018 when Jason, his girlfriend Lily, and their two friends, Ryan and Mia, decided to spend a weekend at an old cabin by the lake. The place belonged to Jason's uncle, and it had been sitting empty for years. The cabin was surrounded by thick woods, with no neighbors for miles, and the only sound at night was the soft rustling of leaves and the distant splash of water. They wanted a peaceful summer escape. What they got was anything but peaceful. The first day went perfectly. They swam in the lake, grilled food, and laughed around a campfire under the full moon. The moonlight was so bright it almost looked like daylight, and the forest seemed calm and harmless. Key. They didn't know then that the forest wasn't empty, 'cause someone or something was already watching them from the tree line. Around midnight, when everyone had gone inside to play cards, Jason stepped out onto the porch alone. The air was still, and the lake reflected the moon like a mirror. That's when he saw it, a figure standing at the far edge of the water. It was tall and thin, almost blending into the darkness. Jason squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing, but the figure didn't move. At first, he thought it might be a lost hiker, or maybe an animal casting a strange shadow. But then it tilted its head slightly, as if acknowledging him. Jason's heart froze. He whispered Lily's name, trying not to sound alarmed. When Lily came outside, the figure was gone. Jason tried to laugh it off, but deep down, he felt something had been watching him. Later that night, the group was getting ready for bed when they heard its slow, crunching footsteps outside the cabin. They all went silent. The footsteps circled the house, slow and steady, like someone pacing. Ryan muttered that it was probably just a deer, but none of them believed that. Jason turned off the porch light. The sound stopped. For nearly 10 minutes, everything was silent again. Then, out of nowhere, came a long, scraping sound along the cabin wall, like something dragging a sharp stick or fingernail across the wood. Lily grabbed Jason's arm, whispering, "Who's out there?" No one answered. Scraping moved from one wall to the next. Whatever it was walking around them. Jason slowly pulled the curtain aside to look. At first, he saw only trees. But then a pale face appeared at the window. It had hollow eyes and an expressionless stare. Jason jumped back with a curse. When he looked again, it was gone. Ryan wanted to go outside with a flashlight, but Mia shouted, "Don't you dare." They decided to barricade the doors and sit together in the living room. No one slept. The footsteps returned several times through the night, stopping at random moments. At one point, they heard what sounded like soft tapping on the windows, one tap, then another, then a slow series of them moving around the cabin. It was like the figure was testing every entry point. When the sun finally rose, they rushed outside. The ground was damp, and around the cabin were long, narrow footprints, as if someone had walked barefoot through the mud. The prints led from the lake to the porch, but disappeared into the woods. On the dusty window where Jason had seen the face, someone had written one word with their finger: "Run." They packed everything in under 10 minutes. No one spoke much on the drive home, but halfway down the dirt road, Jason turned to look out the window. Near the tree line, between the shadows, something tall and pale stood watching their car disappear. 2 weeks later, Jason's uncle went to check on the cabin. He called Jason that night with a shaky voice. Someone had carved the word "stay" into the front door. Deep scratches, as if done with something sharp. But no signs of forced entry, just those words. Jason never returned to that cabin. To this day, he says he can still remember the way that pale face looked through the glass, like it wasn't human, like it had been waiting. And every summer, when the moon is full, he dreams of standing on that porch, staring at the lake, and the figure staring back. Story 2. The shortcut road. Mia was 17 the summer it happened. She visited her grandmother every year in a small countryside town. The place was quiet, friendly, and peaceful until night fell. Her friends lived a few miles away, and there was one road she always avoided walking alone after dark. The old shortcut road through the trees. That road was narrow, with no lights, just dirt and gravel. Locals whispered about strange things happening, their shadows moving, whispers in the dark, people feeling followed. Mia never believed it. One summer night, after staying late at a friend's bonfire, she decided to take that shortcut. It would save her 20 minutes of walking. The moon was bright, and the forest was silent, except for crickets. Mia walked quickly, her phone flashlight cutting a thin path through the darkness. After a few minutes, she heard something behind her soft, crunching on the gravel. She turned around. No one. She started walking again, faster this time, but the sound followed. Crunch, crunch. Her heart started pounding. She told herself it was probably just her own footsteps, echoing, but when she stopped walking, the sound kept going. 2 more crunches, and then silence. She whispered a shaky hello, but got no response. The forest felt heavier, as if it were holding its breath. She turned around again and saw it a tall, shadowy figure standing between the trees. It wasn't moving, standing, watching. She could make out its shape, but not its face. The moonlight hit it at just the right angle to make it look almost human, but wrong. Mia took a step back, her phone light shaking in her hand. "I can see you," she said, hoping to scare it off. Nothing. Then it tilted its head slowly, just like a predator observing prey. That was the moment Mia ran. The crunching footsteps behind her turned into loud, fast thuds. It was chasing her. She didn't dare look back. The road seemed to stretch longer than usual. Her lungs burned. The night air was cold against her skin. She could hear it gaining on her. Just when she thought it was right behind her, she saw her grandmother's porch light glowing in the distance. The second she stepped onto the porch, the footsteps stopped. The forest was silent again. Mia slammed the door shut and locked it, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Her grandmother rushed to her side, confused, but Mia couldn't get a word out. They sat near the window for an hour, listening. Nothing came. But when they checked the porch the next morning, they saw large footprints in the dirt, bare footprints. They led up to the steps, but there were no prints leading away. Mia avoided that shortcut road after that. She always took the long way, even if it meant walking in the rain. Some nights, she swears she can still hear those footsteps outside her window. Slow, deliberate, like something waiting for her to walk that road again. And the strangest part? A year later, a man disappeared while taking that same shortcut home. No one ever found him. Story 3. The park bench. Kevin worked the closing shift at a small diner that sat near a public park. In the summer, it was a shortcut home, a straight path through the park, lined with tall trees and a few old streetlights. He'd walked that path dozens of times without a problem. But one night changed how he felt about that park forever. It was around 1:00 a.m. when Kevin stepped into the park. The night air was warm, the crickets were chirping, and the moon hung high, casting silver light across the empty path. Everything seemed normal until he saw her. Under a flickering streetlight, sitting perfectly still on an old bench, was a woman. Her head was lowered, and long black hair covered most of her face. She was wearing a pale dress that looked old, maybe soaked in something dark. Kevin slowed down. Something about her posture felt off, too stiff to be normal. He tried to ignore it and kept walking, but as soon as he passed her, a faint whisper echoed behind him. He couldn't make out the words. He turned around. She hadn't moved, still sitting, still facing forward. His pulse quickened. He forced a laugh under his breath. Probably just someone weird hanging out late at night, he told himself. A few steps later, he heard it again, a whisper, louder this time. He turned around again. The bench was empty. The woman was gone. Kevin spun around, his flashlight scanning the park. Then, out of the corner of his eye, He saw her standing at the end of the path. She was facing him now. Kevin's heart dropped. He started walking faster. The sound of his footsteps echoed, but then he heard a second pair of footsteps following, soft but steady. Every time he turned, she was closer, ever walking, just appearing a little nearer. When he reached the middle of the park, the last working light flickered and died. Total darkness. He froze. He could hear her breathing behind him, slow, raspy, almost inhuman. His throat tightened. He didn't want to turn around, but he did. She was standing just a few feet away. Her pale skin almost glowed in the moonlight. Her mouth hung open wider than humanly possible, and her eyes, they were black. No pupils, just black. She tilted her head to the side in that same unnatural way Jason described in the cabin story. Kevin ran. His footsteps pounded the pavement as he reached the park exit. When he finally made it to his apartment door, his hands were shaking too badly to fit the key in. He turned around, expecting to see nothing. There she was, under the streetlight across the street, her head still tilted, watching. The next morning, she was gone. There's no sign anyone had ever been there. Kevin quit his night shifts a week later, but some nights, when he can't sleep, he swears he hears soft whispering outside his window, like she followed him home. And one night, months later, a neighbor told him they saw a woman standing in the park at 1 a.m., staring at the path, waiting. Story 4. The Cornfield Stranger. It was the summer of 2016 when Brandon spent 2 weeks at his cousin's farm in Iowa. The property stretched for miles, surrounded by endless rows of corn that swayed under the hot wind. It was quiet during the day, but at night, the fields seemed to breathe. Brandon had grown up in the city, so the stillness felt strange to still, too silent, until the night the silence broke. His cousin Emma warned him about walking near the cornfields after dark. You can get lost easily, she said. Or worse, you might hear something you can't explain. Brandon laughed it off, thinking she was just trying to scare him. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially under a summer moon. One night, after everyone went to bed, Brandon couldn't sleep. The farmhouse was warm, and the sound of distant crickets filled the air. He stepped outside to get some fresh air, the full moon shining like a silver coin over the fields. The corn stretched out like an ocean, gently moving in the wind. That's when he heard it, a faint whisper, deep within the rows. At first, he thought it was Emma, maybe outside feeding the animals, but the voice was wrong. It was low, almost like someone was whispering through their teeth. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone made his stomach twist. Against his better judgment, he stepped off the porch and walked toward the field. The dirt was cool under his feet. The whispering grew louder, coming from somewhere deeper between the rows. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. The whisper stopped. Then a soft rustle started moving fast, circling him through the corn. He froze. The stalks swayed, even though there was no wind now. He turned his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam caught nothing. A minute later, he saw something move, just for a split second. Tall figure standing between the corn, watching him. It didn't move, didn't flinch. It just stood there, its outline barely visible under the moonlight. Brandon took a step back, whispering, "Who's there?" The figure slowly stepped forward, one deliberate foot at a time. Brandon ran. He sprinted through the rows, trying to find his way back, but everything looked the same. Every direction was corn, endless and suffocating. He could hear footsteps following him now, heavy, steady, to calm for someone chasing in panic. When he finally broke through the last row, he stumbled into the open yard, panting, flashlight trembling in his hand. The farmhouse lights were still off. Turned around, expecting the figure to be gone, but it was there standing just beyond the first row of corn. The moonlight revealed more detail now. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with arms that hung too long, reaching almost to its knees. Its face was pale and expressionless, like a mannequin. Brandon couldn't move. The thing didn't chase him. He just stood there, watching. He backed up slowly toward the porch. Figure tilted its head to one side, and then, as if melting into the shadows, stepped backward into the corn until it disappeared completely. Brandon ran inside, locked the doors, and stayed up until sunrise. When he finally told Emma what happened, she went pale. She said people around there called it the field watcher. They said it appeared only on summer nights when the moon was full, never harming anyone, but always watching. Some believed it was the ghost of a farmer who disappeared decades ago, lost in his own field one July night. Others said it was something much older, something that didn't belong there. Later that day, when the sun was high, Brandon gathered the courage to check the spot where he'd seen it. In the dirt, between the first two rows, he found long footprints bare, with toes that seemed too thin, too sharp. He followed them for a few feet before they just stopped. No turn, no return path. Just gone. That night, he didn't sleep. Around midnight, while everyone else was still awake watching TV, Brandon heard it again, the same low whisper, drifting in from the field. It sounded closer this time. The dogs started barking wildly, their eyes fixed on the window. Brandon looked out. The corn was moving again, but there was no wind. He never went near that field again. And even now, years later, every time he visits his cousin's farm, he swears he can feel eyes on him from the rows of corn whenever the moon rises full. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.